when I purchased the Durango, it's 1999. It had 216,000 miles on it, and a transmission that didn't work. You couldn't put it in reverse. You go forward, and the forward gears were hit or miss. But you couldn't put it in reverse. There's no reverse. You couldn't even put it in neutral and push it backwards because stuff was messed up inside the transmission, so it was locked up. So you could only go forward. There was no going in reverse unless you disengage the blah 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 blah, the differential, not the differential, the why am I spacing this all of a sudden? The anyways, the 2 and 4 wheel drive, you can disengage the. Why the heck am I spacing this? It's bothering me if you can't tell. But anyways, so you disengage, you put it in neutral from that. Why can't I think of it? Doesn't matter, but it's bothering me. Obviously, I should be able to think of it. Anyways, so the only way you could get it to push backwards was to get that into neutral, and that the joint that switches it from 2 to 4 is a manual. So you put it in neutral, you put it in 4-wheel drive. I always like to back up a little bit and then go forward to engage the 4-wheel drive. But and then when I'm done, especially on these older vehicles, you gotta you take it out of 4-wheel drive, but then you gotta go backwards because the front axle is slightly smaller than the back axle. To you unwind it essentially. I still can't think of it. I'm going to think of it as soon as I stop the video. But it's funny to me. You guys probably don't care. But anyways, so I got this Durango on its deathbed, ready to go to the junkyard. And then because I'm handy at spinning wrenches and stuff like that, and I enjoy it. That's the big thing. I enjoy stuff like that. But I was able to bring the Durango back to life. And now I have over 300,000 miles on it. But I knew it was eventually going to happen. I ended up rebuilding the transmission a couple years after I got it. I drove it without the reverse and being able to go in reverse for a couple of years, just A to B's, But I was in an car accident in 2015, head-on collision. And then I went for just under a year without a vehicle, just mainly because I didn't have money to get a different one. And then when I had a little bit of funds, that's when I got this Durango, and I got it for $700. That's what I paid for the Durango. And I mean, right now it's minus the small things of age, like what just recently happened. It's solid. Anyway, so I've done so much to the Durango. I could probably name 100 different parts I've put into that thing. But I fixed it up, stuff I enjoy doing. Rebuilt the whole transmission head to toe. I rebuilt the valve body within the transmission, which is some of the real small parts. I did that on my kitchen counter. Didn't have a lady here to tell me not to do it, so I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to rebuild that on my kitchen counter. Anyways, and so I rebuilt that at 230,000 miles, and because I'm over 300,000 mile, so I've got over 70,000 on that transmission, and it's solid. I mean, it's a beautiful transmission since it's redone. But when I did it, inside the bell housing, there was 3 different markings of odometer readings, so it had been rebuilt a few times before I got my hands on it. And that's why I just redid it head to toe. Did the whole thing. It took me a while, but I just did it slow and steady, and that's why it's solid, right? Anyways, so and I learned a shit ton in the process, and that's the big thing, right? I could do it in half the time now. But anyways, I knew that eventually I was gonna have a head gasket problem with that many miles. I knew eventually that kind of thing is going to happen. It's just, when's it going to happen? Has it happened before I got it? has something like that been worked on? I don't know. So I just assumed it was eventually going to happen. Well, it happened a couple days ago. So on the driver's side, on the by the firewall, that side of the head, it's an 8-cylinder 5.9 V8 Magnum, 360 cubic inch. Anyways, so the head gasket finally went, right? And I'm just all bummed out about it, as anyone would be when they got their head gasket that went. But it just sucks for me because I'm like a few miles from the closest town, and it was super inconvenient, right? That's the only vehicle I have, that kind of thing. So, anyways, I was a little bummed out about it, and then I was doing research, and I came across this product, and I had never heard of it before. Now I've heard of definitely the brand name because they have a bunch of different products, the bars leaks, but I'd never heard of this specific one. And then doing the research, I found another one similar to this where you have to actually take your thermostat out and drain the whole radiator system and all that kind of stuff. Where this one's a little bit newer and there's carbon fiber stuff in it. And so I am super skeptical, right? But there's all these reviews saying, hey, yeah, I was about to total my car and take it to the junkyard, and my friend said, try this, so I tried it. And what do you know? It's working like new again. So I was just like, but I was just super skeptical, right? Just because it's like this is a major, head gasket's a major thing. So mine was at low speed. It was just largely because of the cold weather, stuff like that, and being old. But anyway, so it was along the edge. So as we can see in this image, that's our head gasket right there. If you see the little holes, that's where your coolant is going to flow through. The big holes are where your pistons are. So we have a lot of heat and energy happening right there. And then we have the coolant flowing through the little holes to keep everything cool, right? That's the purpose of it. So this gasket, if any part of it goes, it's a lot of times the little hole will go, and then it will allow coolant to get into a piston. That's going to be where your oil is. So the whole purpose to keep these things separated, right? So when a little hole goes and it goes into the piston, you get a mixture of your antifreeze and your oil. So you get like a milky oil, a bubbly oil. It'll flow a lot quicker, that kind of thing, where it's not as thick as the oil that you would normally have. Anyway, so because I caught it super quick, it was at low speed, and anyway, so my oil is unaffected. And you can tell by just taking your dipstick out, looking at your oil, that kind of thing. You would either have a lot more fluid in there than you're supposed to, or you would have that milkiness to it where the color's changed. That sort of thing, right? So you can tell different stuff like that. And then one of the other telltale signs is the white smoke out of the exhaust, which I had a light white smoke, not like a super heavy, right? And that was likely because my gasket wasn't totally shot on that driver's side there, but it was going, right. So if it would have gone from one of the little holes to the piston holes, the big holes, right, on our gasket, then it would have been a lot worse. So because it was only in the little holes to the outside edge rather than in towards the piston holes, there was a possibility that you could repair it with something like this, right? Now, like I said, I was super skeptical because literally I would put fluid in the top, I'd look at the bottom, and it'd be draining out. I mean, right, it'd be draining out onto the ground. That's how this leak. That's how significant this leak is. But because it didn't mix with the oil, I was like, all right, these reviews are saying these people, doing these different things. So I was like, heck, I'm gonna give this stuff a shot. Right? It's $40. It was on sale, so it was a handful of dollars off. But it was 40 and some change out the door. And I was like, shoot, other stuff you have to, similar kind of things, you have to remove your thermostat and flush the system. And all of this stuff is where you didn't have to do that. So I was like, well, I'll give this stuff a shot, right? Because it's 20 degrees outside. I'm not, you can't feel your finger. I don't have a garage. So it's like, if you can't feel your fingers, you get into some projects out there. Anyways, if you can't tell, I'm super stoked about this product. So what you do is you cycle it, right? So what it does is you put it in on a cold engine and you cycle it in, and then it fills in the holes with the heat and the pressure and all that stuff. And then it's supposed to stop the leaks, fill in the holes, and then when you let it cool, it hardens, right? That's the reactant. The heat is the reaction that causes that allows it to harden when it cools, and creates a ceramic thing that's said to be better than your original head gasket according to the box, right? Which is it's kind of neat, right? But at the same time, you're like skeptical about it. Anyways, so I put this stuff in on a cold engine. I'm ready to dig into the head gaskets, but I want to try something quick and simple. This is a little bit more modern technology. So I was like, well, shit, I'll give it a whirl with all these reviews. Why not, right? Most people would probably take a vehicle like this to a junkyard, but I'm going to take it to 500,000 miles. Anyways, so I get this, and I'm super skeptical, but it was like, if I do the head gasket job, it's going to take me a significant amount of time. I'm going to freeze my ass off, and it's going to cost me a bunch of money, right? This is $40. So I was like, all right, what the hell? I'll give it a whirl. Put this in. So you put it in, you top off the coolant, start the car, and then you let it run up to temp, and then you turn it off. So this is a cycle. You turn it off, you let it completely cool, top off the coolant, and then run it again at about 1200, so a few more hundred RPM, a little bit higher RPM, not like full on, like, faster than that, but just to get it a little bit warmer quicker. And then what you're doing is you repeat this. It says you only got to do it those couple times, but you repeat the cycle. And by repeating the cycle, you create a layer, right? So you have a layer of this stuff. So every time you heat it up and you cool it, whatever is still in the system that hadn't filled in a gap and hardened, it fills in any further gaps, right? So it's almost a really good preventative measure. If you have an older vehicle, this would be a great preventative measure. Just if you're afraid the head gasket might go or something like that, they just put this in there, and it's really pretty amazing. So it would go into those cracks and it would make your head gasket great, right? Anyway, so one of the mechanics on a YouTube reviews had said he had done this for a customer, and he ran into the customer a few years later, asked him about it, and they said they're still driving on the head gasket repair with this thing. Right? So it's a pretty, that's where it's like, oh, it almost sounds too good to be real. It's part of the reason why I'm doing this damn video, right? Because I'm super impressed by this stuff, super duper impressed. So within 5 minutes of starting that first cycle, I'm on the third cycle right now. I'm in between, but within 5 minutes, it was down to just a drip. So it was draining out like a small sieve, right? It was a straight line of liquid coming out, and then within 5 minutes of running, it was down to a drip. And in another 5 minutes, there was no drip. And then you finish letting it get up to temp. There's still a little bit of white smoke coming out of the exhaust at this point. And then I turn it off, and then you let it completely cool down so that stuff that went in the cracks hardens, and then you repeat the cycle, right? With a little bit higher RPMs, so a little bit more warmth, anything that's still flowing around to fill in any cracks, right? That's why this would be a great preventative tool, right? Anyways, so you repeat the cycle, and then now I don't have any white smoke. There's no signs of any leakage whatsoever. And and I'm going to do 4 total cycles. It says to only do 2, but I'm going to do 4. It's so cold out, so it cools off super quick. I'm doing a half-hour cool-off interval, which just ended. That was a beeping. It was a timer I had set. So I'll go start it, get it up to temp at a little higher RPM, and then I'll turn it off again. So it's like creating that additional layer, right? I was so in awe of how fast it stopped that leak. I really could not believe it. So the thing about this is, though, if you did blow it into a piston on our head gasket, where you have the oil mixing with the antifreeze, the coolant, then you shouldn't use something like this, because then this material is getting into where your oil is, and it could lock up the engine, kind of thing. But because we went from one of the little holes to the outside edge, and so that's where the water or the coolant antifreeze is draining out of, that's where it's sealing up, and at the same time that preventative maintenance is happening to the rest of the gasket, where it's filling in any gaps and hardening when it cools. So super cool. I'm super duper impressed so far. I did not expect it to stop that leak. I really didn't. But then it did. And I was just like, holy motherfucking shit. This stuff stopped that damn leak. Because it was draining out almost as fast as I poured it in. Clearly a little bit smaller hole draining, but it was just like, it was unbelievable how well this stuff works so far. So I'm going to run those 4 cycles before I do taking you up to any sort of speed or anything like that. But I'll probably do a second review on this after I've done the cycles and actually let it sit again. So I'll finish the 4 cycles tonight, and then it's like 15 degrees outside right now. And then when I finish the 4 cycles, I'll let it sit overnight. But then tomorrow I'll take it up to speed and see if it holds and all that sort of stuff. And I 100% believe it will, after what I've witnessed today. This stuff, even the fact that it sealed that, freaking amazing, absolutely amazing. But again, you got to be cautious, because if the gasket is potentially going in with the oil, it might not fill in the gap where you want it to fill in the gap, kind of thing. So that's where you got to use your better judgment. And there's other things for that. At that point, you're gonna have a shit ton of white smoke coming out of your exhaust, and you might not have any power at all. You might not be able to start the vehicle, that kind of thing. Where mine, because like I said, it happened at lower speed and that kind of thing, so it was a little bit more minor in that regard. Back in the day, no matter what, you would still have to replace the head gasket. But this stuff, that's all I gotta say. I'm super impressed. I've done head gaskets before, and it takes a lot of time. You just gotta be patient. But and doing that in the cold would not be fun. So I don't have a garage. But anyway, so I'll do a review after after the cycles are completely done. There's no leak, no white smoke already. Seems to be purring, that kind of thing, which is really great. But like I said, I haven't taken it up to your basic speeds yet, so I'll do that. I'll do a second review of this. But as of right now, 10 out of 10. 11 out of 10. This product is absolutely fucking amazing thus far, which is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And then that mechanic that said that customer 3 years later was still driving a car after this fixed with this, that speaks wonders, right? But it makes you think, oh yeah, it almost sounds too good to be true. Well, I'll be the review on that, my friends.